Good morning, good morning, good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, I suppose, depending on where in the world you are. Welcome to today's Grey Market Blast. It is Thursday, the 21st of August, all day. Not entirely sure where August is gone, but there we go.
I don't like it. I just want to say that.
Don't like it at all. Scary. You join me and the awesome Angie Setzer, where Angie will be giving us the latest roundup in the latest pricing flows, market moving news, in agricultural markets. It would help if I put my teeth in. But before she cracks on, I'll get the legals out of the way. Nothing discussed in the space of session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by myself, PIQ, or indeed the glamorous with a capital G, Angie Setzer. Angie, how are you, my love?
I'm super. Thanks for
Thanks
asking.
for asking.
Yeah,
God.
I do not know why August has decided to be to the end of it already. Like we're at, the 21st, and I'm talking about harvest preparation. That sucks because like harvest and then Christmas. And I'm sad. That's kind of how it goes. Like, I don't know. Like, no, for most people, like, if you're on the grain side of things and like in the physical movement side, that's kind of, well, anyway, I'm going to way go off on a tangent. So I'm just going to shut up and redirect myself at this point. I'm getting better with age. So, but yeah, I don't know why summer has decided to leave. Colton started back to school this week. Like it's done now. So I guess we'll
And
just celebrate it.
how's this first week going? All good, I hope.
Super good, except for this morning. He was not going back to school. He did not figure he had to. He told me he wanted to stay home. And I told him, bro, I would also like you to stay home, which was kind of a lie. I do love him when he's home. I take that. I don't get me the wrong way, but I always
He's listening later on.
right? Yeah. I love it when you're here, honey. But anyway, yeah, so it was good. He has tomorrow off, so thank the Lord, because I don't know if we'd get him out for the 5th day in a row this week, but we made her.
I
So
feel him.
yeah, he was definitely like, and it's funny because Carl was a total anti-school guy. He hated school. I loved school. I was a nerd. You may have caught that vibe from me. I was the perfect attendance kid in school. Yeah, like I threw up in the library a couple times just because I was like, no, I have to get my award. But no, anyway, no one tuned in for this, so I'm apologetic at this point. Biggest things we're looking at here to start our Thursday that I thought was Friday. That's also disappointing today. Crop tour things. And we could put a Z on the end if you'd like. And one of the things I've been saying here over the last little bit is everyone, I feel like there's something for everyone. So like literally yesterday on the Twitter sphere, I had one, guy that I know that I go back and forth with that I respect his opinion and things like that. And he's like, looks like the tour's dismantling the 188 yield projection, and then on the flip side, I'm reading other analysts that have been bullish corn yields going into it where it's like, well, they're just reinforcing the 188. And so in comes, Illinois from the top rope to a certain extent with a flying elbow. And it's like, not so fast, bros. I'm not just going to focus on Pro Farmer because there are some other well followed smaller tours, that are taking place. One, a cooperative that, is in that Pekin, Peoria area. So your breadbasket of Illinois to a certain extent, released their survey, results yesterday. They went on a survey, August 19th, Tuesday, right? Sampled 80 fields in their territory like they typically do. And the biggest thing they said is there was a lot of variation in ears even in the same field. Saw some tip back, not enough to cause a big issue. Decent amount of southern corn rust, which is a super bad, disease. It tends to, cause early maturation and reduce your yield. And the biggest thing that they said that surprised me is average row per ear was the major factor that drove our average down. Average row per ear came in at the lowest level we've seen on tour in the last 10 years. So this is a group that's out trying to determine what their handling is going to be for fall. They're not out and Pro Farmer is out to provide observations. That's why I don't get too hung up on the numbers each night. And at the end of the tour itself, I like to hear and see what the scouts are saying and what they're believing. Oliver Sloop, he's with Blue Line Futures. He's a friend of mine. We go back and forth a little bit. Like he's another one of those where I'm like, I claim him as a friend and he might be like, dude, I've talked to her a couple times for God's sakes. But in any event, I'm claiming him. But I asked him, I said, I'm busting into your DMs this morning, like the Kool-Aid man, but like, what are you seeing? And he kind of reiterated, he had tweeted yesterday, the theme of the day was variability as we work through central Illinois. So I'm just going to say variability is not a record crop, like the two shall never meet. And so I think one of the things that we learned with yesterday's numbers, like Western Iowa, good. We knew that. We knew that they were going to be way better than last year too, because they'd had better growing conditions. They hadn't had quite the extreme conditions that they'd had last year with some flooding and some other things. So the Western Iowa number is good. I think the Illinois number is what caught a lot of people off guard. It's very difficult to achieve a national record yield like the USDA is predicting without a big record yield in Illinois. And so to see, not only the pro farmer come out and be below a year ago, you're also seeing these smaller cooperatives that are planning, handling. You're seeing seed companies, you're seeing other agronomists and things like that. When they're coming out and being like, okay, variability, again, like I said, lots of disease pressure. And then the other thing I really want to point out to anyone who's listening and watching the crop tour and may not have, decent history with understanding how August rainfall affects yields. The crop tour reports pods, in a 3 foot by 3 foot area. A lot of people are talking about, okay, well, there's a ton more pods. There's a ton more production potential. That would fit perfectly with the weather that we've seen. The pods are basically determined. The pods are put on the plant in June into July. They're filled in August. So you need rain in order to make these pods perform to their maximum potential, to make these bean plants perform to their maximum potential. If you look at the map I shared yesterday of August rainfall in the first 3 weeks of the month, you're looking at places across a good portion of the Eastern Corn Belt that are looking at their top 10 driest August on record. Across much of Ohio, it's their driest August on record. And so we're kind of depending on, everyone's talking about these pod counts and the potential in the bean crop. And we already are 3 weeks in. We freaking know that they're not going to hit maximum potential at this point because we haven't had the rain in the last 5 weeks. Like you can look at last half July into August and you can see that you took the top end off. A lot of people love to say beans only need one rain in August. That's bullshit. They need about 2 and 1 in September for us anyway to finish a bean crop. And I'm not just someone who's talking out my butt as a market analyst over here. Like for 10 years, I had to manage a food grade bean program, the space for a food grade bean program. We had to be able to figure out what was coming in at harvest, what was going to be buyer's call. I worked hand in hand with the agronomy team. My boss was an agronomist with 40 years of experience. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I just think we have to make sure that we're recognizing some of this. Anyway, horse is dead and I have beaten it enough. On to demand. We saw big export sales again this morning on new crop corn, massive, well above expectations. Almost 1 million metric tons of it went to unknown. Now, a year ago, everyone would have been like, oh my gosh, is unknown China? Are they going to cancel? Yada, yada, yada. Unknown is a whole slew of people. Realistically, I think unknown in this instance is probably going to be the EU. We saw the European Union, we kind of have finalized the agreement there. One of the things that you are seeing is that they have said that they will give preferred market access to U.S. agricultural commodities. You've also had a drought. You've got Spain. You've got some of these other countries over there that are going to need bushels. And you did see Spain, their flash sales showed up. But the biggest thing is you're looking at, unknown destinations at 950,000 metric ton, Mexico at 750,000 metric ton, South Korea's on there as well. One of the things I want to point out when looking at corn exports that I think is really interesting, we are seeing business going into Vietnam. Vietnam's typically an Argentina customer. So if is this a sign that perhaps the Trump push of make sure you're making purchases of U.S. agricultural commodities first and foremost, that's something to be paying attention to because we are seeing some of these countries that may be typically would be sourcing corn elsewhere are still coming to the U.S. Now, we're cheap out of the PNW. We're offering big discounts. We're 50 cents cheaper than like Brazil. You know what I mean? So there's some of that. Ukraine's not aggressively offering corn into the world market, yada, yada, yada. But we're looking at massive corn export sales numbers, for new crop. And the biggest thing is the argument is, okay, well, if we do reduce yield, we're going to reduce demand. And if we continue to sell at the pace that we're selling here for new crop sales and we're shipping like we, have been, like we're basically a year ago, we had 7.9 million metric tons of corn on the books. We currently have 16.7 million metric tons for the new crop year. It's over double. It's huge. And so you saw a good soybean sale number. China didn't show up, yada, yada, yada. And so we'll just continue to watch that demand and see if we get, anything from it. Wheat kind of slowed down a little bit, but there are a lot of rumors that China was in to buy soft white wheat yesterday. No one has confirmed that for me yet. That's actually in the physical trade. But that's part of why you saw wheat kind of, I'm just going to say it was a hammer bottom because I love that. I don't know if it really was. I am not a tech trader. It's my favorite tech term other than doji. I'm like, looks like a hammer bottom to me. And so I give it a 10, hammer bottom. So, but we launched down to 494 yesterday, recovered like 11 cents off our low, and basically on the rumor that China had come in and bought some white wheat. The one thing I will say, a lot of folks are like, well, it doesn't really make sense. Why would China come in? They are anticipating having a really tight supply of wheat October through March this coming year. They've had some They've had some quality issues. They've had some other things that have popped up in their wheat. They've been using a lot of it for feed here because their corn prices were going up, and then they wanted to douse that, they wanted to make sure that stopped. So we introduced a lot more in the way of wheat feeding, had some government sales, yada, yada, yada. And so it would fit. There's also some thoughts, like there are TRQs. And so basically like Chinese private importers, there's certain ones that have these sort of tariff-free imports that they can tap into. And so there are some thoughts that, some of these will expire soon. I think October 1st for the old crop. And so you could see them come in and start buying some grains. Plain and simple though, it goes back to what you and I have been talking about for the last couple of weeks. If you look at this thing right now from an overall standpoint, like if you look at the corn market, the wheat market, and even the soybean market to a certain extent, you're looking at blue light special. Like you didn't grow up with Kmart, but that was a big deal. Like that meant that there was like big sales going on. You're lucky you're in the store. And that's what you're seeing. Like corn is on sale in a big way. Wheat is on sale in a big way. Last time we were at these levels, you saw these countries come in and determine that it made sense for them to get some coverage on. Right now, no one's feeling rushed because they think big supplies are coming in. But if you do see China come in and start to make some purchases of feed grains and some other things, you could see some other folks begin to get a little nervous because it's not like we're drowning in. Everyone loves to talk about plentiful supply, but it's not showing up in the physical pipeline, and that's where it counts. Yeah. Right? Futures for show, cash for dough.
There we go.
But anyway, any questions on that before I
No, all good.
Move on. Okay. So other than that, there's not really much else to talk about. So can I finish? Okay, I'm finished. But no, that's basically, we had the rumor yesterday China had come in for wheat. We'll see if we get any sort of confirmation on that. And remember too, like a lot of people today might be like, well, no flash sale. That doesn't, these flash sales are okay, but they're not what you think they are. Like to a certain extent you're required to report them or whatever, but there are latent, we've seen it, significantly latent, reporting that takes place in some circumstances. I've talked to Seth Meyer about it. It's more of an FAS thing than, World Ag Outlook Board thing. But it is something where, don't let the flash sales dictate everything. But beyond that, yeah, we'll watch the last day of crop tour. They'll work their way through, Iowa and into southern Minnesota. And they'll wrap up in Rochester, and then tomorrow afternoon they'll give us some updates. With some other smaller private, tours making their way too, so keep an eye out for those results. And, demand continues to be good, and, we'll see what happens with our idea on supply. I think that's it.
Wonderful. Angie, thank you so much. I feel much more comfortable now. I'm back, at my own desk.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But thank you so much, as always, for giving us the latest in crop markets, in agricultural markets in general. Listeners, as always, and I always say it, and I will continue to always say it, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. And whatever you're doing, stay safe, keep it tight. We'll see you all tomorrow for the last show of the week. How it's Friday, I have no idea. But there we go.
I don't know. Have a good one, guys.